From a communication standpoint, really the other thing to think about in all this is, as I mentioned before, there really are a number of ways you can communicate with your students electronically that not just avoid face-to-face office hours time, because there's nothing wrong with meeting with your students face-to-face. See, I turned that on and then it became annoying. Meeting your students face-to-face, but there are times when a student just has a quick question. There are times when really all they want to know is when's the paper due, or do I need to use 6 references or 8 references. Before we had email, like it feels like we had email forever now, doesn't it? We haven't. Before we had email, that would be a question that you would line up at office hours to ask. No learning management system, no WebCT, no email. A lot of people wouldn't bother standing around and waiting to talk to the prof in class or after class, so you would go to that designated office hour to ask how many references. That is so different now. And as I said, the problem is since students have moved away from email, a lot of them really don't use email. They will be using some kind of more instantaneous messaging. Bob Burke here at chemistry prof here at Carleton started about 5 years ago doing office hours on MSN the week before exams, tests, midterms, tests, and exams. And he just goes on to MSN. He figured out when his students studied, and he knew it started around 9 o'clock at night and went till about midnight. So he just goes on MSN and sits there. And they come on, and he's always, because I see him on my MSN when he comes on, and he always has that, jam tonight, no highs, no buys, just chemistry questions only, please. And sometimes he'll have 90, 100 of them on there asking them questions in a 2-hour period. It's very efficient.
Exactly.
And then if a whole bunch of them ask him the same question at the same time, he links them all onto one conversation and talks to them about it. But they're sitting at home in their res rooms or in their houses, and it's 11 o'clock at night. And they're getting the answer now. And again, I don't think that's something you have a particular issue, new faculty have as much of an issue with as far as dealing with students by email, because there's still a number of more seasoned faculty who refuse, who say, that's my personal life and I don't want them emailing me, they need to come and see me. We can only fight that for so long. One of the things we asked our little panel, I told you we had the little panel of undergraduate students for new faculty orientation, was we asked them about that. We asked them how soon they expect to have an email answered. And they said, 24, 48 hours. Now, if you set up something where they expect to hear from you, I will always answer my students sooner than that. When I teach stats, I know that when they ask a question, it can just freeze them. They can't get anything else done. But I'm always on my email. It's on in my house all the time, and I'm checking it. That's just the way some people work. The most important thing with your students is to set up the expectation of what it's going to be. Used to be the case that a lot of people would set up email answering times. So they'd say, I will answer my email on Wednesdays and Friday afternoons. So if you send me an email on Tuesday, you're not going to get an answer. I recommend everybody here uses WebCT to communicate with their students, not email. I recommend they only use WebCT. Then the student logs into WebCT. They're thinking about that class. You know they're in your class. You know who they are. And Freedom of Information Protection and Privacy Act says that we are not allowed to communicate with students on personal email addresses. We can only communicate with them through their Carleton emails. Now, we know that most of them are forwarded to Hotmail or Gmail or whatever accounts, but we can't talk to those accounts. So the problem comes in if I email you at your Carleton account and you have it forwarded to your Gmail account, and then you mail me back out of Gmail, I can't answer you in Gmail. I have to mail your Carleton account and say, mail me out of that because I can't answer your Gmail account. And we have that regulation in now that all Carleton students are required to read their email on a regular basis. Information delivered via the Carleton email system to Carleton students is considered received, in other words. But a lot of them still don't read their email, and it's one of those issues. But you need to make that very clear. It's usually not that much, the work-life balance thing. And it depends on, if it's the day before something major is due, I just use WebCT. I tell my students not to talk to me on email. WebCT mail is inside WebCT, and I'll log on once a day, and then I'll see whatever's in there, and I'll just deal with it all. And then you don't get the email from hotbunny45@gmail.com that says, hey, in the subject line and says, when's the midterm? and you've got 500 students and you have no idea who Hot Bunny 45 is, right? If you're in WebCT, it's going to come in as their legal Carleton name, or Blackboard or whatever you use, and you just have to put on your course outline that all communication for the course will be carried out through the course management system. And then some of them will still get your external email. I always then decide whether to answer it or not. So often I don't. They'll say, I emailed you, and I'll say, really? I checked my WebCT email last night. Big bold letters on the front of the course outline. All communication will be carried out in. But you can go online and have chats. If you want to go on MSN, you can. But again, work-life balance, Bob doesn't care. He's sitting there working anyway at 11 o'clock at night. If he doesn't want to be on in the mornings, then he's not. They aren't going to office hours anymore, folks. Maybe we can just close with that thought. The number of students coming to office hours has plummeted. But they perceive that they have very good contact with faculty when they're talking to them electronically. Some of them will still go, but they'll go for more meaningful, sort of really engaging with the material and asking for help on a specific thing. But the numbers are way down. I had a faculty member come to me about 4 or 5 years ago, and she had really bad teaching evaluation scores, and she couldn't figure out why. And one of the things she got really low scores on was accessibility to the students outside the classroom. And she said, I'm so frustrated. I think she was a contract instructor, sessional. And she said, I'm so frustrated because I have more office hours than anybody I know. I have 2 office hours a day, 5 days a week. Because I'm here anyway, so I set them as office hours, and it's noon to 2 or whatever every day of the week. She said they never come, but she got less than a 3 out of 5 on her availability. And I said, well, did they email you? And she says, oh, since I have all those office hours, I won't deal with them over email. And then this is where you say, look at the rocket science I am. I can solve your problem for you. Because the students were expecting to be able to, they expect email contact now. They begrudge it, the younger ones, because they're not used to email. They want to rather text you. Don't give them your cell phone number. I forgot to say that this morning when we were talking about make the transition. Don't invite all your students to your house, like your very first term teaching. And don't give them all your cell phone number, because there's, a university, this university is a fair size community. We have about 30,000 people altogether on campus between our undergraduate students and our staff and our faculty. We're slightly larger than Charlottetown PEI, Carleton University. And everybody in a community that size is not necessarily stable all the time. And it's one thing to have a group of students that you're working closely with and you give one of them your phone number or something. It's another thing to broadcast to a theater of 300 what your cell phone number is. Because you don't even know for a fact every one of those people sitting in there is necessarily registered in your class. So protect your privacy.